Hello, class. Today we're going to be focusing on lesson 12.2. Lesson 12.2 is describe data collection. So, our essential question to start us off is how can you describe how a data set was collected? So, in this lesson, we're going to be looking at different data sets, okay? And as you get into your own independent work, you're going to be looking at different data sets and you're going to be discussing or describing different things such as attributes, how many observations were made, and such, okay? So, we're going to take a look at what an example could look like and what you would have to fill in throughout your own practice. So, if you can follow along, the top. One way to describe a set of data is by stating the number of observations or measurements that were made. So, observations or the number of measurements that were made. So, whatever that you're looking at in terms of data. Another way is by listing the attributes that were measured. An attribute that I already underlined here is a property or characteristic of the item being measured. So, for example, it can be something like its color or its length. Okay? So if you look right here in this first example that we're about to look at, this is talking about garnets. So garnet data, and you can see that there are different garnets and different masses, and the masses are being observed in grams. Okay, so let's follow along. Jeffrey's hobby is collecting rocks and minerals. The chart gives data on garnets he found during a recent mineral hunting trip. Identify the attribute being measured, so what's being measured for each garnet, the unit of measure, so what are they using to measure it, the likely means by which measurements were made, and the number of observations. So there's four things that we're looking for. So as you can see up here again, there's all the different garnets with all the different masses. Okay? So describe the data set, it says. What property or characteristic of the garnets did Jeffrey measure? Okay, so the attribute that Jeffrey measured was the mass. So there's different garnets, yes, but the thing he was measuring was the different masses of the 12 garnets that he had. So the mass is the attribute that was measured by Jeffrey. The unit used to measure the mass of the garnets, so the unit that they used for the mass was this G for grams. So the unit used to measure the mass was grams. To measure mass in grams, it doesn't necessarily tell us, but if you think about it, the way that you can use, or a tool that you can use to weigh things can be a scale or balance. Okay? Different things that you can use. And the number of observations. Well, if you look up here, you can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 different garnets. So there are 12 observations because there's 12 garnets and 12 different masses. Okay? So we answered the four questions. So we had identified the attribute, which was the mass, the unit of measure, which was grams, the likely means by which the measurements were made, so what they used to make these measurements of the mass, so a scale or balance, and the number of observations, 12 garnets. Okay? And that's how you would be able to describe a data collection, a data set. So let's answer these questions at the bottom. Would Jeffrey likely have gotten the same data set if he had measured a different group of garnets? Explain. Well, if you think about it, Jeffrey went on a mineral hunting trip outdoors, pretty much. He went outdoors in nature and he was hunting for minerals. So if you think about it, no, because oops, pardon me. I want to say no. Garnets found in nature would occur in many different sizes. Okay. So if you think about it, if you are on a mineral hunting trip like Jeffrey was, and you were to go out into nature, would you most likely get the same exact 12 garnets with the same exact 12 uh, measurements? So same masses for each 12? You most likely will not get another 12 with the exact same mass. Okay? So you most likely won't get the first 12 again. So when we talk about attributes now, if you remember, an attribute is a property or characteristic of the item being measured, such as color or length. And we talked about mass for this. So what other attributes of the gardens could Jeffrey have measured? Well, if you think about it and just looking at it, you can see that there are colors. So you can measure the color. You can look at the brightness. Pardon me. You can also look at, if you want to think about, because these are minerals, you can talk about the hardness of each one. You can talk about the length. You can pick many different attributes that could possibly be discussed. Okay? But these are just different examples. So you can see there's color, the brightness, the hardness, the length, or the mass. Okay? But like I said up here, once you can look at the data that is provided, you can look at the number of observations, the unit of measure, the likely means by which the measurements were made, and from there, you are describing a data set. So we're going to go on to the next page. And on this next page, it's going to give an example, but this example is something that they wanted us to do in class. Obviously, because we're working from home, it's going to be a little different. So we're not going to be able to do the full activity, but I'll be able to describe the data set and basically what you would have to do if you were collecting your own data set. So it says the materials you'll need are a ruler. So you can see right here, they provided a ruler as a picture just so you can see. In this activity, you will work with other students to collect data on the lengths of students' index fingers in your group. You'll present the data in a chart. Okay, and like I said, because we're at home, obviously we're not being able to work within groups, but I'm showing you what it would be to describe the data set overall. So describe the attribute you will measure. So the attribute, remember, that we are looking for, according to this, is the length of the student's index fingers. So I can put right here, the attribute being measured is the length, or I should say the lengths of the students. So this would be you guys. Index fingers. Okay, and the last part says what unit will you use? Well, if you're using a ruler, you can think that you can either use inches or centimeters. Okay? So the second question says, describe how, or the second bullet point says, describe how you will make your measurements. Okay? Well, because we are given a ruler in this activity, you can use the ruler to measure. You can use the ruler to measure the lengths of your index fingers. Okay? So you would take your own ruler, for example, and you would measure. You can use either inches, okay, or you can use the centimeters. Oops, pardon me. It would be either way, whichever one you would choose to do. So Describe the data you will record in your chart. Okay, so if you think about it, I'm actually going to refer to the last page. So the chart that they gave us in the example, we can see right here. It gave us the garnets. So if you think about it, the garnets are the number of observations, and the garnets can be thought of as the number of students. Although there's only 12 here, but in Mr. Castaneda's class, we have 19 math students. So you can think about there would be 19 students or 19 garnets. And the mass can be referred to as either the inches or the centimeters, whichever we would choose. Okay? So to describe the data in our chart, the names or the numbers of each student with the length of each index finger. Okay. So, and it says the next bullet point says in the space to the right, make a chart of your data. Well, because we are not in class, we're not going to be able to make a chart of our own data. But just like how I referred to on the last page, you think about the garnets is the number of students. So you can put the names or the numbers of students. And then the unit of measure would be the length of each index finger in either centimeters or inches. So, how many observations did you make? Okay. Well, if I'm referring to my own classroom, I know there are different numbers for different classrooms, but in my own math class, we have 19 students, so there would be 19 observations. Okay, 19 observations. Okay. Now this would have been a fun activity that we could have done in our classrooms with our math classes, but obviously we are adjusting, and that is okay. So if you can, the rest of the time for today, you're going to be able to work on describing different data sets. Okay, so data collections that you're going to have on ClassKick, and as you go through, make sure to take your time. Do not rush through. Take your time. Ask for your teacher support on ClassKick, or if you have a comment, you can leave a private comment on your Google Classroom, or you can send us an email. Please don't hesitate to reach out, and we will see you guys tomorrow.